Imagine this: you're sitting across from a woman who seems to know exactly how to pull you in. Every word she says feels like a test. One moment she's laughing at your jokes, leaning forward as if you're the most interesting man in the world. The next, she's silent, distant, cold. You can't figure out if you've done something wrong, or if this is just part of the game. And while you're trapped in that confusion, notice what happens. You start working harder for her approval, chasing her validation, bending yourself into a shape she can either accept or reject. That's when she owns you because you gave her the power. Now, what if I told you that this exact emotional trap is the reason some of the greatest philosophers in history, men like Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, even Aristotle, spoke about women with suspicion, sometimes even outright distrust? They weren't speaking out of random bitterness. They were warning men about a fundamental pattern that once you let yourself be captured by charm, beauty, and emotional unpredictability, you lose your clarity. You stop leading and you start orbiting, and once you're orbiting, you're weak. Let's be brutally honest. Have you ever noticed how quickly a man can go from confident to desperate when he feels a woman slipping away? He starts over-explaining himself, apologizing for things he didn't even do, buying gifts, texting non-stop. That's not attraction. That's submission. And it's the exact moment when she begins to see him not as a man, but as a tool, something she can shape, test, and use. Philosophers saw this weakness for what it was: the destruction of male agency. Here's the harsh truth: many women don't test you because they're evil or malicious. They test you because it's instinct, a test of your strength, your boundaries, your ability to hold your center. And yet, if you fail those tests by overreacting or overgiving, you confirm her suspicion you're not strong enough to lead, you're just eager enough to please. That's why the ancients distrusted this dynamic, not because women were unworthy, but because men were too often unprepared. Think about it in your own life. A woman pulls back. She takes longer to reply. She makes a cutting comment that stings more than you'd like to admit. Inside, panic rises. You want to prove yourself, to win her back, to erase the tension. But that's the exact trap. She didn't lose attraction, she's checking your stability. And the man who reacts by chasing, pleading, or fighting loses every ounce of respect. The man who holds his ground, who doesn't need to prove himself, who lets her drift and doesn't chase that man, passes the test. Here's your tactical clarity when she withdraws. Do nothing. Do not double text. Do not confront her with emotional outbursts. Do not try to fix it. Indifference is your weapon. It communicates one simple truth: I am not moved by your games. I am steady with or without you. This doesn't just stop her manipulation, it makes her respect you more than before, because it shows you can't be controlled by emotion. That's power. Schopenhauer once said women were childlike in their need for constant attention and validation. Whether you agree or not, look around modern dating and tell me you don't see the same demand for endless reassurance. The question is, do you give it freely, like a servant, or do you measure it, making her earn it through consistency and respect? Every man must choose. And if you choose wrong, you'll find yourself drained, resentful, and humiliated without even realizing how you got there. I want you to recall a time when you overinvested. Maybe you drove across town late at night just because she hinted she wanted to see you. Maybe you skipped out on your plans just to be available. Maybe you ignored her coldness, convincing yourself she was just busy while she was testing your limits. Every man has done this at some point, and if you're honest, you'll admit how weak you felt afterward. Because deep down, you knew you weren't acting from strength. You were acting from fear of losing her, and nothing kills desire faster than fear. So let's turn that around. Next time you feel that pull to chase, Stop yourself. Ask, am I acting from strength or from fear? If it's fear, sit with the discomfort and hold your frame. The philosophers didn't tell men to distrust women so they could hide from them. They said it to sharpen men's awareness, to keep you from sleepwalking into a dynamic where you're powerless. Awareness is the first weapon, detachment is the second. Together, they make you untouchable. Let me ask you this. Have you ever recognized yourself in this exact situation? What happened next? Which one of these toxic behaviors have you faced before? Be specific in the comments. And what's the hardest part of walking away when you know she's manipulating you? Picture this, you're sitting in silence with her, maybe after a small argument or even something trivial. You thought it was nothing, just a misunderstanding, a bump in the road. But suddenly, she withdraws. She won't look at you. She answers with one-word replies. The warmth you felt yesterday is gone, and you're left scrambling to figure out what you did wrong. This is the weapon of withdrawal, and it's more powerful than most men realize, because it doesn't just starve you of her attention, it starves you of validation, and that hunger makes you weak. Nietzsche warned men about this very dynamic. He believed women had a unique way of wielding absence as power. When she withdraws, you're left with a choice. Do you chase, trying to earn back her light, or do you sit in the darkness calmly, showing her you don't need her approval to breathe? One choice binds you, the other sets you free. Let's be honest, you've probably chased before. Every man has. You text her more often, trying to break through the wall. You ask if she's upset. You offer to make it up to her, even if you don't know what you're apologizing for. And the more you do it, the less she respects you, not because she hates you, but because she sees you've given up your center. She sees you can be controlled by silence. That's when her attraction dies, quietly, almost imperceptibly. You need to understand the psychology behind this. Withdrawal is a test of your emotional independence. A woman wants to know, can you handle being uncomfortable? Can you stay calm when she's unpredictable? If you can, she feels safer with you because you're not swayed by every emotional storm. But if you can't, if you panic, beg, or chase, she knows you're dependent. And dependency breeds contempt. Here's the tactical move when she withdraws. You match her silence with composure. Do not reward her coldness with extra warmth. Do not punish her with anger. Stay steady. Focus on your life, your work, your friends, your training. Let her come back on her own. When she sees you won't be bent by her absence, she learns one thing: you're not a boy chasing comfort. You're a man who doesn't need her to survive. That's irresistible. This is why great philosophers spoke with such caution about women. They weren't saying women were evil. They were saying men often walk blindly into traps of their own making. You see, the danger isn't her silence. The danger is your inability to sit with it. The danger is your craving for reassurance, your fear of abandonment, your compulsion to fix everything instantly. That's what she's measuring. Not the problem itself, but your reaction to the problem. Think of a lion in the wild. When the lion is hungry, it doesn't chase frantically after every scent. It waits, it stalks, it conserves its energy until the moment is right. That's how power is maintained, through patience, through control, through silence of your own. When she withholds affection, don't mirror desperation, mirror strength. Let me give you an example. A man I knew once told me about a girlfriend who would go cold every time she wanted something from him. Attention, gifts, apologies. The first time it happened, he bent over backward. He took her out, bought her things, begged her to tell him what was wrong. She rewarded him with affection again. But it wasn't love, it was a transaction. He had trained her that withdrawal equals reward. Over time, She pulled back more and more often, and he lost more and more of himself. When he finally realized what was happening, he did something radical the next time she went cold. He didn't move. He went to the gym, worked late, met friends. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't text twice, and within days, she came back on her own, more affectionate than before. Why? Because he had shown he could not be manipulated by absence. That's what the philosophers wanted men to see. If you let yourself be pulled by every emotional current, you're not a man, you're a leaf in the wind. And no woman truly respects a leaf. Respect is reserved for the tree that stands unmoved, no matter how fierce the storm. So here's your clarity every time you're tempted to chase. Pause. Ask yourself, am I about to train her to disrespect me? Because every action is training. If you chase, you teach her that your strength is negotiable. If you hold steady, you teach her that your respect must be earned, not demanded. One path leads to exhaustion, the other leads to power. Now I'll turn it to you. Have you ever been on the receiving end of withdrawal? How did you react in that moment? Did you chase, or did you hold your ground? And what would change if you tried indifference instead of desperation? Some women don't break you with silence. They break you with praise. And that sounds strange, doesn't it? But think about it. You meet her, and she showers you with attention, admiration, validation. She tells you you're different, you're special, you're not like other men. You feel chosen, desired, elevated. For a moment, you think you found something rare. But then, slowly, quietly, that flood of praise begins to dry up. And just like that, you're hooked. This is the cycle every philosopher who distrusted women understood on some level, the trap of conditional admiration. Schopenhauer wrote that women live more by their feelings than by reason, and that makes their affection volatile, unpredictable, fleeting. One day, you're her hero. The next, you're her disappointment. And if you don't understand the game, you spend your life chasing the high of her approval, like an addict chasing a drug. This is why it's dangerous to fall in love with her words instead of her consistency. Early on, her flattery feels intoxicating. She knows this. Some women weaponize it because they understand how deeply men crave respect. It's the most powerful drug for a man being admired. When she gives it freely, you feel alive. But once she pulls it away, you'll do anything to feel it again. You'll compromise, overgive, sacrifice yourself. And in that sacrifice, you become weaker in her eyes. Here's what you need to realize. Respect that can be given cheaply can be taken cheaply. Real respect is not handed out in words. It's built through time, through consistency, through loyalty when no one is watching. The philosophers distrusted women not because they hated them, but because they saw how men destroyed themselves by believing in admiration too quickly. They saw men surrendering their strength for the illusion of being seen. Have you ever noticed how some men lose themselves once a woman validates them? They stop training, stop working, stop focusing on their purpose. They live only for her attention, and then, when she withdraws it, they collapse. That collapse doesn't come from her power, it comes from their addiction. The woman only exploited what was already inside them, the hunger to be admired. Here's your tactical shift: never let her admiration define your worth. When she praises you, accept it calmly, but don't let it sink into your bones as if it completes you. When she withholds it, don't panic. Don't try to earn it back. Stay steady. Respect from a woman is a gift, not oxygen. If you treat it like oxygen, you'll suffocate every time she pulls it away. If you treat it like a gift, you'll enjoy it when it comes, but you'll never depend on it. Let me give you a story. A man once told me about his girlfriend who used praise like currency. She would tell him he was incredible, the best boyfriend she'd ever had, the one she could see a future with. But when he disagreed with her or didn't do what she wanted, the praise disappeared. Suddenly, she became cold, dismissive, even critical. He admitted he started changing his behavior not to be true to himself, but just to get back that sweet flood of validation. It took him years to realize she wasn't loving him, she was training him. Every compliment was a leash, every withdrawal was a correction, and once he saw it, he cut the leash. That's the power you need to claim. Stop being trained by words. Watch what she does when it's inconvenient. Observe how she treats you when you're not giving her what she wants. That's the truth of her character, not the sweet words whispered when she's full of desire. This is where Nietzsche's caution comes alive. He believed that men who surrendered their strength to a woman's approval lost their ability to create, to stand, to fight. And if you look around, you'll see it everywhere, men who lost their vision because they were too busy chasing someone else's admiration. Don't let that be you. Build your worth so solid that her praise is decoration, not foundation. So here's the practical line when she flatters you. Enjoy it, but stay grounded. When she criticizes you, don't overreact. And when she withholds her admiration, don't chase it. Let her see that your confidence is untouchable. That's when she truly respects you, not because you bend for her, but because you refuse to bend at all. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever found yourself addicted to a woman's admiration? Did you change yourself just to keep her praising you? And what would it feel like to finally be free from that leash? Some women use silence, others use praise. But there's another weapon that's even more dangerous because it's harder to detect subtle contempt. It's the little sigh when you speak, the faint smirk when you share an idea, the dismissive whatever when you try to explain yourself. These aren't outright attacks, but they chip away at you, piece by piece, until one day you wake up realizing you've lost your edge, and you wonder how it happened. Philosophers knew this pattern too. Aristotle wrote that women often influenced men not by reason, but by emotion, by making them feel small, uncertain, less capable. And here's the reality. Contempt is the seed of destruction in any relationship. Once it takes root, respect dies. And without respect, attraction follows. The problem is that most men don't see it clearly. They excuse it. They tell themselves she's just in a mood or joking. They minimize it, hoping if they ignore it, it will fade. But contempt never fades. It grows when tolerated. You've probably lived this. Maybe you were at dinner, telling a story, and she cut you off with a roll of her eyes. Everyone laughed. You felt that sting, but you pushed it down because you didn't want to ruin the night. Or maybe she compared you to another man, her boss, her friend's boyfriend, even her ex. You felt the cut, but you told yourself you were overreacting. Those little cuts are how men bleed out their dignity slowly, until they're shells of who they used to be. Here's the harsh truth: contempt tolerated is contempt multiplied. If you don't call it out or walk away, you're training her that disrespect has no consequence. And once she knows she can disrespect you freely, it never stops. That's why Schopenhauer described marriage as often degrading for men, because too many surrendered to these small humiliations just to keep the peace. They chose comfort over respect, and in the end, they lost both. Here's the tactical play: never let contempt slide. The first time it happens, confront it calmly. Don't explode, don't whine. Just look her in the eye and say, "Don't talk to me like that." If she laughs it off, hold steady. If she apologizes, good. She's testing if you'll enforce respect. If she doubles down, then you already have your answer. She doesn't respect you, and she never will. The cost of staying will be your self-worth. And once that's gone, No amount of affection or sex will fix it. Let me give you an example. I knew a man who ignored years of contempt from his partner. She mocked his career, belittled his ambitions, even criticized how he dressed in front of friends. He stayed silent, convincing himself she didn't mean it. Over time, he stopped sharing his goals. He stopped trying new things. He shrank himself just to avoid her ridicule. By the time he realized what happened, he was a shadow living not as a man, but as a prisoner in his own house. The day he finally drew the line and walked away, he told me it wasn't anger that fueled him, it was the unbearable weight of wasted years. That's why you must catch it early. The first sigh, the first smirk, the first dismissive jab, that's your signal. Address it once. If it continues, you leave. Not because you're fragile, but because you value yourself too much to be poisoned slowly. And here's something crucial: women actually respect men who enforce boundaries against contempt. When you let it slide, she feels powerful but disappointed. When you call it out, she may resist at first, but deep down, she feels safer. Why? Because you've proven you won't let her worst instincts destroy the bond. Respect grows when boundaries are enforced. The philosophers distrusted women because they saw how men abandoned their boundaries in exchange for affection. But the lesson isn't to avoid women, it's to avoid disrespect, to remain vigilant, to remember that every interaction either builds respect or erodes it. So here's your practical command: never beg for kindness. Demand respect through your actions. The moment contempt appears, you either correct it or cut it out of your life. That's how you protect your masculinity. That's how you stay unbroken. Now, let me ask you, have you ever felt the sting of subtle contempt and brushed it aside? How did that decision affect you in the long run? And if you had enforced your boundaries earlier, how different would things look today? There's one more layer to this puzzle, and it's the most brutal of all: when a woman uses love itself as leverage. Not silence, not praise, not contempt, love. She makes her affection conditional, something you must constantly earn, and you don't even realize it because you're blinded by the idea of keeping her. This is the dynamic that broke countless men through history, and it's why so many philosophers spoke with such sharp warnings. They saw how love, when turned into a contract of control, could turn kings into beggars. Think about it. You start strong, you meet her, and you feel alive, desired, unstoppable. But soon, the rules change. She doesn't say it outright, but you sense it if you don't please her, if you don't give more, if you don't bend. You'll lose her affection. Every kiss, every touch, every I love you becomes a prize you have to work for. And the moment you believe her love is something to earn, you've already lost. That's when men start selling themselves piece by piece. They compromise their goals to spend more time with her. They give up their boundaries to avoid conflict. They silence their opinions to keep her happy. They lose themselves in exchange for what they think is love, but what it really is control. By the time they realize it, they're empty, exhausted, and resentful. And here's the cruel irony: the more they give up, the less she respects them. The philosophers didn't mistrust women out of bitterness alone. They saw this mechanism with cold clarity. Nietzsche wrote that love, when corrupted, becomes about possession. And Schopenhauer went further, saying that women's love was often tied to survival and instinct, not timeless devotion. Their point wasn't that women are incapable of love, but that men who worship love without strength become slaves to it. So what's the tactical defense? It's simple, but not easy. Never make her love your currency. If she withdraws affection, don't pay more. If she makes her commitment conditional, don't bargain. Instead, stand firm. Let her see that your center doesn't shift depending on her mood, that your purpose, your discipline, your life remain unchanged whether she is overflowing with affection or withholding it. That steadiness is what makes her see you as a man, not a servant. I'll give you a real story. A man I knew fell deeply for a woman who dangled commitment like a prize. She told him she wasn't sure yet, but gave just enough affection to keep him hooked. He kept bending, proving, performing until one day. She told him he still hadn't done enough. He broke down, furious, accusing her of manipulating him. But here's the truth, she hadn't manipulated him, he had manipulated himself. He had made her love the measure of his worth, and in doing so, he had given her complete control. When he finally cut contact, he told me something powerful. The freedom wasn't losing her. The freedom was realizing I never needed her love to begin with. That realization is the key. Her love can add to your life, but it cannot define it. Once you see that, no woman can ever hold you hostage again. And here's the hardest truth you must swallow. Real love cannot be negotiated. The moment it becomes a transaction, it's no longer love, it's leverage. The philosophers warned men to be cautious, not because women are incapable of devotion, but because men are too often incapable of detachment. They want love so badly that they sell their soul to keep it. That's not romance. That's self-destruction. So here's your clarity: love her, enjoy her, let her enrich your life, but never need her in order to be whole. If she stays, it's because she respects the man who cannot be bent. If she leaves, it's because she never respected him to begin with. Either way, you win because you never sold yourself for the illusion of security. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.